to see all of you. I meet all kinds of people doing this. I met a guy after a show one night. He said to me, "Young man, you were very funny. I don't get out much. I'm the announcer for the Amtrak Railroad Pennsylvania station. You were the funniest man I've seen in New York, Newark, King of Prussia, Philadelphia, Wilmington, Baltimore, and Washington. All aboard." I meet all kinds of people. I was in Las Vegas, and I met a guy who was there for the Soldier of Fortune Military Home Defense and Ammunition Gun Expo. They believe that all white people are descended from Adam and Eve, all Jews are descended from Eve and Satan, and all blacks are descended from Eve and the artist formerly known as Satan. It is the strangest thing. But he kept trying to sell me a gun for like 2 hours, and finally I said, "Look, I don't own a weapon." And he said, "Well, how do you defend yourself?" And I said, "Wit." And then he said, "Wit what?" I was just on this TV show, and the only other person that was on the show was Martha Stewart. Now, I know when you hear the name Martha Stewart, you think, comedy. I mean, what do you say to her? I said, "Hello, I tried your plantain-coated fillet of dolphin fish." And she looked at me and she said, "And what will you be doing on the program?" And I said, "Well, you know, I'm a comedian. I'll just be telling jokes and stuff." And she said, "Oh, I like a little amusement now and again." "What will you be talking about?" And I said, "Well, you know, I'll just be talking about whatever I think is weird or strange or peculiar. You know, what will you be talking about?" And she said, "I'll be showing our viewers how to sew a lightly scented, moth-repellent organza sachet." And I said, "That's what I'll be talking about." I live here in New York City. I live right there, right here, under the bridge. The New Yorkers are the biggest bunch of snobs you have ever seen in your entire... They have been there, done that, and they hated all of it. Yes. They could climb to the top of Mount Everest and go, "Oh, well, this is overrated. And there's a draft." But I'm originally from the South. I'm from the great state of North Carolina. That's the state that gave you Senator Jesse Helms, Jim and Tammy Baker, and tobacco. That's 3 cancer-causing agents right there. I am white trash and proud. I was raised in an upwardly mobile home. So I prefer to be called Trash de Blanc. Oh, you know what? Somebody just saw me and they said, "Oh, you're from the South? I'm from Florida." Florida's not the South. When you've got 2 Altacacas sitting next to each other on a park bench and one of them says, "Well, I used to keep a kosher table, but I don't anymore," that's not the South. It's just totally different here in New York, totally different. Like you ask directions in New York, you say, "Excuse me, where's the hospital?" "What, are you sick?" You know, down where I'm from, it's like, "Excuse me, where's the hospital?" "Well, you're going to get in the car, and you're going to drive about 45 or 50... How far? Earl! How far is he going to go?" "To the hospital." "The hospital." About 45 minutes down to where the water tower used to be. Then you're going to turn left or right? Earl. Well, ask your wife. Pearl. Would you hurry up? He's bleeding. I don't know what happened to him. What happened to you? He got stabbed. You did? I'd go to the hospital if I were around here. many young people. Look at you. I could be your daddy if that's what you want. I don't have any children because I just don't have any patience for little children. Even when I was in kindergarten, I was going, who are these children? God, I need a cocktail. I have a cat, that's enough. I have an autistic cat. He can't find the litter box, but he can fly. I have a gay dog. He barks like Paul Lynde. Whoa. I'm just in a silly mood. I feel like I'm on drugs. I really do. I'm a former hippie. I did drugs back when they were healthy. The only time I ever did LSD, I was at Disney World. I didn't go there. It came to me. I was Snow White. I was one at the party that got sent to the 7-Eleven to pick out the munchies. So after about an hour of walking around the store, I ended up at the counter with a can of peaches and a Jetsons coloring book. Then I said to the guy, will there be anything else? He said, yeah, get off the counter. A lot of young people do drugs, which is a shame. I was a former teacher. I taught Shakespeare to 7th and 8th graders in the South Bronx. These kids needed remedial work on the little engine that could. Some of my kids, bless their heart, one of my girls thought that Yves Saint Laurent was the night before Saint Laurent. Think about it, you'll get it. Some of my kids were smart, though. They'd ask me questions to which I don't know the answer. Questions like, if homosexuals do not reproduce, how come there are so many of them? A lot of people do homeschooling now, you know, teaching your kids. Can you imagine how horrible? The whole point of going to school is so you don't have to be around your parents. I mean, can you imagine if they were your teachers? And this is Thomas Edison. He invented the electric light bulb because he knew how to clean up his room. And he did not talk back to his mother. But you have a computer, don't you? Yep. I have a computer. I read my morning papers on the computer. It's just hard to hold the computer on the toilet. Because I don't have a laptop. They don't even have to go to the library anymore, like I did. You know, you should have to, like say you're going to do a book report on Beowulf. You know, all you have to do is go, Yahoo, Beowulf, and out it comes. You know, you should have to go to the library and speak to a human being and say, hi, Miss McGillicuddy, where do I find information on Beowulf? Okay, you go down row A, section C, group 32. Go down that row, go up the spiral staircase. You'll see 5,000 shelves. Go down to shelf 3,792. Go down that row, veer to the right. You're going to want to veer to the left, but veer to the right. You'll see a brick wall. Push the third brick from the bottom. The wall will open diagonally, go through that wall, go down the spiral staircase to the lake. Get into the lake, get into the boat, and cross the lake of fire. If you've rented a helmet, the bats won't get you. When you get to the other side, go through the labyrinth. Go to the left, the right, the right, the left, the left, the left, the right, the left, the left, the right, past the third mummy, out into the woods, down the hill, over the river, up the hill, and knock on the door of the log cabin, and there will be Beowulf himself. So many young people. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. Let's just say it's somewhere between 30 and a Walmart greeter. I love getting older. I love it. You're happier, you're more well-adjusted, you have more money, and the older you get, you realize a very important thing. People in their 20s do not know a damn thing about anything. People in their 20s are good for one thing, looking better than people in their 30s or 40s. So, if you're in your 20s, strike a pose and shut the f*** up. Some friends of mine recently came to visit me. I love it when people come to visit me here. Some friends of mine came to visit me from Holland, and they said, "We would like to go to Haarlem." I said, well, you know, the Dutch influence has waned over the years. It's nice to have black people here tonight. I was just in Maine. You ever been there? That is the whitest state in the entire union. You go to Maine, you feel like you've been beamed into the Lawrence Welk show. Everybody's running around going, white people throwing their weight around, showing the world who's in charge. White people! When I moved to New York, my grandmother said, you better be careful when you move to New York because there's black people. I was like, what did you say? She said, there's black people. It's like she was afraid every black person within 300 miles is going to burst through the living room window going, I have you now. Why are white people so scared of black? Why are white people the biggest? We're afraid. White people are afraid of it. We could see 5 black guys in Armani walking toward them on the street and they go, oh, okay. White people are afraid. White people are afraid that if we go to a black neighborhood, they're gonna mug us. The only time I've ever been mugged in a black neighborhood was by a white guy who grabbed me screaming, get me the hell out of here! We're afraid of everything. We are. We're afraid of the Asians. We're afraid they're gonna take over our company and then take our picture. We're afraid. Yeah. We're afraid of the Puerto Ricans. We're afraid they're gonna hit our car without insurance and then steal the hubcaps. We're afraid. We're afraid of the Mexicans. We're afraid they're going to sneak across the border illegally, go on welfare, and then give us all diarrhea. We're afraid. Yeah. Afraid of the Israelis. Afraid they're going to turn our suburbs into little settlements and then blow them up. You know, I have no problem giving the Israelis all of Jerusalem as long as they give us back some of Florida. I have no problem with that. Afraid of the gay people, white people. Afraid they're going to seduce our children into interior design. Don't do that! Hey, guess what? My little other half and I are about to celebrate our 15th anniversary of being together. Is that cool? 15 years. How about that? Look, I don't know what the hell to call him. If I call him my partner, it sounds like we have a law firm. If I call him my companion, it sounds like one of us is a dog. And if I call him my boyfriend, it sounds like we sit at home and watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is a really good show. My mother didn't know what to call him either. We were down in North Carolina at the mall, and my mother saw a friend of hers she hadn't seen, and she said, and this is my son Jim, you remember him? And this is Fred Rosenberg, his, Jew, a fag, a friend. My dad looks at me and he says, so now, what is it that the two of you do? What do you do? And I said, well, you know, Dad, all those things you really wish Mom would do, but she won't, that's what we do. Oh, listen, we were in Israel and we were at the hotel, and the woman behind the desk at the hotel said, and I have for the two of you a double bed. Yes, that's fine. For the two of you. Yes. A double bed. I said, that's fine. And then I swear she said, all right. Yeah, going to Israel was a scream. Before I went to Israel, being this southern white Gentile that I am, I was like, golly, can't the Jews and the Arabs just get along? And after being there, I'm like, no, they can't. Nope. But I'll tell you, we were in a tour bus, and the woman in the tour bus actually said, on your right is the famous King David Hotel, and on your left is a Christian organization, Yimcha, Y-M-C-A, Yimcha. At any second, I expected the village people to show up and go, Yi Imchae! I travel all the time. I was just in England. The British are great. The British don't want to be embarrassed about anything. You know, they could have their pants around their ankles and they're going, do you feel a draft? I love the British nature series, you know. Hello, I'm David Attenborough, and this is life on Earth. I'm standing in the midst of the Sahara Desert, hardly a less likely place to find a fish. And yet, here it is. Scientists for many years have tried to determine why this particular fish has existed in this particular stagnant pool for 150 million years. And so far, scientists have been unable to determine any reason for the existence of this fish at all. So I'm going to kill it. Girlfriend of mine who lives in England does her impression of a British man having an orgasm. Oh dear. Oh dear. So sorry. Oh, you know what? While I was in England, While I was in England, I went to see a session of the British Parliament. Have you ever seen them on C-SPAN? They're all screaming at each other. You know, they're going, no, I don't agree with you whatsoever. You can all eat me. You can all get down on all fours and munch away. I don't agree with you whatsoever. You know what? I'm not political anymore. I don't care. I just don't care. I couldn't be a Democrat because I like to spend the money that I make. And I couldn't be a Republican because I like to spend the money that I make on drugs and whores. You know, I'm not over here. I'm right in the middle, really. I believe in capital punishment. And since I was a former teacher, I believe in starting it at the 8th grade level. But you know what? It doesn't matter what any of them say anymore, does it? It's whether or not we think they're cute. That's how we pick them. Yeah, that's why they ought to forget the whole election and just have a fashion show. Well, first up on the runway, it's Daddy's boy, George Bush Jr. So hot he's burning a hole in the ozone in his 1,000 points of light Dale Evans Day Glow swimsuit. Whether it's cocktails in Kennebunkport or a hoedown in Houston, George is hotter than a burning Kuwaiti oil field. And here's Pat Buchanan, the Antichrist, to the extreme right of the runway. America's favorite fashion fascist is putting America first with his Mussolini camouflage combat gear. From For Heteros Only by Adolfo Hitler. And look, it's Billy Clinton, that little guy from Little Rock, sexy and scandalous, in his Arkansas State Trooper Jennifer Flowers legal briefs. With extra material for universal coverage. And look, it's Tipper Gore, tipping the light fantastic in her topless Tennessee hoop skirt with parental advisory pasties. And here's the governor of New York, that wacky lackey George Pataki, in his tacky khakis by Bob Mackey. And look who's out of power now. It's Newt Gingrich, tossing those family values aside and showing us his true colors in his Robert Mapplethorpe Catwoman leather dominatrix outfit. With matching whip and stiletto heels. Whip me, beat me, tell me I'm cheap Newt. Hey, guess what? My name is Jim, and that is my special. Thank you so much.